Hi, I'm BECMI Berserker and welcome back to my channel. Not really a BECMI video today, but more of an opinion about something that's been eating away at me. So if that's not why you've subscribed, then please accept my apology, but I would encourage you to listen on. So what's been doing my head in? Well, frankly, I've just felt the need to have my say in some kind of rhetorical response to the noise around Baldurs Gate 3, D&D Beyond's VTT, and the future of the RPG hobby in general. Earlier this year we had a sneak preview of the new VTT being developed by Wizards/Microsoft for the Dungeons & Dragons game. At that time there were many lamentations, by myself included, about the direction of the hobby, and even the longevity of it in its classic meet-round-the-table form. Since the release of Baldurs Gate 3, the chatter around this subject has been dialed up to 11. Apparently, if you listen to Professor Dungeon Master, it's questionable why anyone would even use the VTT anyway, when Baldurs Gate 3 has it all and more, with sprites that move, flashy lights that go ping, and the opportunity to have sex with a bear. And with AI Dungeon Masters around the corner, okay, maybe over the horizon and around the corner, then why does anyone need to get together at all to play their favourite role-playing game? All you really need is a PC with a half-decent graphics card, an AI to massage your addiction, and copious amounts of caffeine delivered intravenously whilst you excrete through a catheter. But let's take a step back here. Is Baldurs Gate 3 really a threat to TTRPGs that some think it is? Is it the first step towards turning all our favourite games into ones and zeros and everything in between once quantum computing on your laptop becomes a reality? No, it isn't. You don't need me to tell you that the years since the release of 5th edition in 2014 has seen a huge increase in players of Dungeons & Dragons, bolstered by reference to the game in the hugely popular Stranger Things series. All of a sudden, Gen X parents were being seen as cool by their kids, who were asking them about the game and how to play it, and the starter set flew off the shelves. And those kids who like to be associated with cool and whatever is the next fad jumped aboard. Suddenly there were more players than games. But were they really fans of the game, or were they just caught up in the D&D zeitgeist? I'm going to go with the latter. This huge increase in players, together with a D&D edition that required some in-depth engagement to run effectively, resulted in a lack of Dungeon Masters that we've all heard about. But it's more than that. The newer players were actually coming up against a reality when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons. It's a game that actually requires some effort. From developing your character to participating in a game, your attention and input is in constant demand. You may say that's the case with a lot of games, but with Dungeons & Dragons and most RPGs, you are required to ensure you remain plugged in, that you understand what all of your character's abilities do, to understand your character's ethical standpoint and consider this during gameplay. This all sounds like a great game, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is that for many recent players trying Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, this is a lot of effort. You have to realise, for many people wanting to try D&D, their expectation was most likely that the game wouldn't place nearly as many demands on them as it does. What demands, you may say? Well, the demand on one's attention and time, to mention just two. How many times have you been asked, "Is your character ready for tonight? Have you levelled up?" Or the Dungeon Master's nightmare, "What were we doing?" Or the Dungeon Master's worst nightmare, "I'm sorry, I have to cancel." People have busy lives and a head full of real-world stuff, and no amount of automation on D&D Beyond is going to help with that. And then there's the time commitment and scheduling of games that, for many newcomers, is seen as a hassle they can do without. Sure, these players might have been interested in D&D to try it out, but once the demands are felt, they walk. We have a lot more 5e starter sets and player handbooks out there than actual regular players. The Basic Expert was talking about this subject over on his channel, and he referred to these players as tourists. I'll put a link in the description below. I can see his point, but I wouldn't have put it so harshly. Let's face it, tourists fund our hobby and give producers nice spikes in income. I'm sure there have been more beneficiaries of the recent golden age than just Wizards of the Coast. However, his video did provoke my own thinking, especially in relation to the rise of Baldurs Gate 3. You see, I think Baldurs Gate 3 is going to be the start of what I'll refer to as the Great Reset in our RPG hobby, and that's across all systems. It's a game that facilitates all your requirements. It manages the game, records all your information, prompts you when you've forgotten things, and looks wonderful all the time. Even I find that difficult. It's the illusion of an RPG without actually being one, yet. Who knows, when AI Dungeon Masters become a thing, it could be everything these players need and more. But it won't be what the established and deeply entrenched RPG community needs. No, our needs are what they always were. We don't want a computer to feed us with experiences. We want to create them ourselves, out of beautifully created systems and frameworks that we can make work for us. We don't want to play these games on our own. We want the company of friends, and sometimes even strangers, to play together and even get things wrong together, all the while laughing hysterically at some obscure cultural reference someone has just inserted into the game, because, be in no doubt, in a TTRPG, you're not limited to just having sex with a bear. Ideally, we'd all want to meet face to face, but there's now a number of solutions when distance becomes an issue, which is why I think VTTs will still have their place in the core community, whatever direction Baldurs Gate 3 goes in. So the Great Reset is a rebalancing of TTRPGs being played by those serious about playing TTRPGs. It's the decline of those people just visiting the hobby to leave the people who always preferred playing it the way it was originally intended, as well as welcoming a steady stream of people who will join us in the future because, frankly, they're weird like us and want to go through all the trouble of playing and running RPGs with friends, because that's where the real fun is to be had. And let's face it, gamers gonna game. Companies like Wizards of the Coast know we're not where the money's at. There are too few of us, and frankly, they're reducing their support of classic gamers in favour of an audience who wants their enjoyment facilitated for a price. And these would be those that have in recent years visited our hobby but found it too burdensome. However, they and developers like Baldurs Gate 3's Larian Studios are also doing their utmost to drag classic TTRPG gamers into, excuse the phrase, the 21st century. And that's the thing. This incessant drive into digital and the so-called 21st century way of doing things overlooks a very basic constant: the need for human contact. There's a game that was incorporated into computer programming almost as soon as we were capable of doing so, and is today available on everyone's phone after a quick visit to the App Store. Yet, those serious about playing chess still prefer to play face-to-face, sometimes in all kinds of weather, because the game forms connections and bonds and has a massive community. So does the TTRPG community. It's grown, but it's resetting into a core of those serious about enjoying that human contact, whilst always being welcoming of those who wish to return from the dark side. In the meantime, it's just saying goodbye to a few visitors. Thank you so much for watching this video. What do you think? Is there a rebalancing of core players of TTRPGs currently happening? Or do you have another view? I'd love to hear it. Please consider liking this video and also subscribing if I've earned your future attention. Otherwise, I'm BECMI Berserker. Keep making your saving throws and I hope to see you back here soon.